Greetings, family, flat earthers of the world. I want to present to you an experiment of Foucault's pendulum in North Texas, Dallas, which is above the equator, not halfway from the equator to the North Pole on a globe, but close to halfway from the equator to the top of a globe, proverbial ball, the assumed ball, and a globe that is supposed to be spinning 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. When you do the math to where Dallas, Texas is, we are some maybe 750 miles per hour to 700 miles per hour spin at this location, latitude on Earth, above the equator, right? So it is said on the globe science that Foucault's pendulum proves the Earth is in motion, that it is spinning. And if you look on any site like Wikipedia, you know, the basic common knowledge of Foucault's pendulum, you will see the mechanics. So I challenge you to go research the mechanics of the pendulum and notice that in the description of Foucault's pendulum, it is supposed to swing slowly like this, and then eventually, if it's on the North Pole, if it's in north of the equator, the swing eventually makes a full, like I'm trying to demonstrate you how it's supposed to swing. It eventually does a full rotation on a sidereal day, and at the end of the sidereal day, the rotation comes back to where it was swinging. If you can kind of picture the way it's supposed to be swinging, that's the way they say it's swinging, Foucault's pendulum, because of the Earth's spin. Now, a couple of observations and contradictions of heliocentrism, this acentrism, vortexing heliocentric model of the globe that is essentially assumed to be spinning, said to be spinning. Now, they just hooked up this pendulum right now to pick something up. So right now the test would be invalid because it's in motion. So I want to just go ahead and talk while the construction workers are working. Now, when I came up to this pendulum, it's been sitting there by itself for hours. And the construction workers just got here and started working with it. They started working with some concrete. They're pouring concrete to create, a building structure underneath here. They're going to create a tall building. So this pendulum was sitting here all day, and I've been watching it for hours, and it was not moving at all. So when you go to any crane construction site where there's nobody working, you can see the pendulum is just sitting there. It does not move at all whatsoever until there is an operator in the crane and he actually moves the crane and he's working it. Now, if Foucault's pendulum is an actual scientific evidence of motion of the Earth, what is it about Foucault's pendulum that is any different than this pendulum right here? Because a pendulum is a pendulum, right? A pendulum is defined by an object that is being suspended and hung by a cable or a wire. And it normally is like a ball or a heavy object. And it's basically an object that can swing in a pendulum fashion in motion based on the motion of the actual arm that's holding the wire, the cable, or the motion of the ground or the device that's holding it, which this device that's holding it is attached to the Earth. So if the Earth is moving, that means this is moving, that means that's moving. So why is it, and I know the guys are working, so disregard the fact that these guys are using it right now. They're working with it right now. And bear in mind, the fact of the matter is that you right now can go out to any construction site. You can go see any pendulum in the world, and you watch that pendulum for hours and just watch it as it does not move. It just sits there, right? So I'm gonna get in front of this camera, and I wanted to speak on this topic of the Foucault's pendulum and the contradictions of the pendulum. So if the Foucault's pendulum is an accurate scientific experiment, then that's not manipulated in any way, right? meaning they don't start it, they don't touch it, there's no operator in the crane right there. Why is it that any other pendulum in the world does not move and only Foucault's pendulum moves? Now, if you read it in its own description in Wikipedia or any other site, you can find any information sites out there. They actually tell you there's an electromagnetic drive motor that moves the pendulum. And they even have, in the museums of the world, they even have a starting ceremonies where they actually start it. Well, my question is, if it's a real fucking experiment, excuse my language, if it's a real freaking experiment, then why do you need to start it? If it's the Earth that's causing the movements of the pendulum, why does there need to be a starting ceremony and we need to push it or have a motor to push it? Can you answer that, globe community? So right now we have a crane that's in motion, and the crane is obviously moving and it's working. That is the only reason this pendulum is working right now. I challenge you, every one of you, to go out to your nearest pendulum anywhere. Go to your living room ceiling fan and look at the pendulum of the switches that turn on the light and turn on the fan. Those are pendulums, and check it out and watch them when the fan's off and nothing's moving and there's no earthquake or anything, and watch your pendulum for hours. Your pendulum is just stationary. It stays there. It does not move at all whatsoever. So here's another contradiction of heliocentrism. When I bring up the fact that the Earth is allegedly revolving around the sun at 66,000 miles per hour, we're spinning at 1,000 miles per hour, we're also flying through space at 450,000 miles per hour as the sun is said to be flying. And my argument on that is, why can I just sit here? I can just sit down quietly, get into the meditating position, and just hold myself. Why is it that I do not feel any motion at all? So the argument that the globe team, the globe community will say is that because it's relative motion. We're in relative motion relative to the other things that are moving, and we're also conservation of momentum because we're inside of a container. So everything inside the atmosphere is said to be moving with the spin of the Earth, right? So that's their argument, their cop-out for all the things. Like when you fly an airplane west to east and the Earth is supposedly spinning west to east, if let's just say we're on the, let's just say this pole is the Earth. So I'm in Los Angeles right here, and I'm trying to fly to the East Coast this way, right? So Los Angeles, the Earth is actually supposed to be spinning this way, and if I'm flying this way, slower than the Earth spin, 1,000 miles per hour, because an airplane only flies 500 miles per hour. If I'm flying to the East Coast, I would never catch up to the East Coast if the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles per hour. So the answer that the globeheads will say to that is that the atmosphere and everything in it moves with the spin, right? So there's another thing we say is, well, a hot air balloon, if a hot air balloon, say, takes off from, let's say, Texas, where I'm at, and just hovers above Texas like this, right? And if the Earth is spinning, then the hot air balloon can just stay there, and then all of a sudden, Los Angeles would come and meet Texas at some point in an hour. That would be about 1,500 miles per miles. Well, LA is about 1,500 miles from Texas. So in 1 hour, 1,000 miles, well, considering Texas is only 750 miles per hour, 700 miles per hour, because the equator would be down here. So 700 miles per hour, it would take 2 hours for Los Angeles to meet up with Texas on the Earth spinning. Get it? So if a hot air balloon hovered above Dallas and just hovered, the Earth should spin under it. That's another thing that the globeheads would say, is their rebuttal would be, well, it's all relative motion, it's all inside the container, conservation of momentum. It's the same reason why you throw up a tennis ball inside a plane, right? And the plane, you don't feel that you're going 500 miles per hour in a plane because you're inside of a container, conservation of momentum, so you don't feel the 500 miles per hour. Yes, I get conservation of momentum. I get that. The difference between being inside of a plane, inside of a moving car, when a car is moving and there's a fly flying around in the car, and the fly doesn't go 60, 70, 80 miles per hour is because you're contained in a vehicle. The vehicle has windows, doors, and a roof and a ceiling over it. You're in a container. So the Earth is supposed to be flying out in space, a ball out in space with no glass, container, firmament, whatever you want to call that. So another contradiction there, or discrepancy, is if the Earth is not contained, it's just it's pressurized atmosphere, gases, bodies, and then it goes less pressure, less pressure, less pressure until no pressure. And then all of a sudden it's a vacuum of space with zero pressure. And then you got all this pressure down here next to no pressure. But shouldn't there be, like on a tire? Here, let me just show this truck tire. Like on this truck tire, shouldn't there be, inside the pressure of the tire, outside of the non-pressure of the outside of the tire is supposed to be space? What separates on a car, on a tire, the inside pressure versus the outside non-pressure? And that's the rubber tire itself. So the rubber tire itself, and here's the pendulum that it's already done dropping what it dropped, and it's sort of in motion tiny bit because it just got done working. So I'm still talking, and we're gonna see if this thing stops, and let's just see if it, well, the pendulum is almost stopped now. It's still barely moving. So I wouldn't be able to do a correct assessment because it just got done working. But again, as I said, I came here hours ago and the pendulum wasn't doing anything when there was no construction workers here. It was just sitting there and I watched it. Anyways, back to the tire example. So if everything is moving inside the atmosphere together with the atmosphere and the Earth is spinning, you know, and then the clouds above us move. How are the clouds above us moving separately from the atmosphere? Right? Wouldn't the clouds like just stay right above us and follow us above? No, there's like wind, there's things called wind, and there's the weather and everything. It just moves and it moves. But the example that the globe supporters, defenders use is that everything is traveling with the atmosphere. So then the contradiction here is the pendulum. Would that not be also traveling with the Earth? The crane is attached to the Earth. So I don't understand why we'd say everything is traveling with the Earth, and why would the pendulum be moving in the first place? If the pendulum itself is also supposed to be traveling with the Earth's spin, why would it even move in the first place? You see? So there shouldn't even be a Foucault's pendulum to prove movement. You get that, globe heads? You got to think about this stuff, because most of you only know how to think where your indoctrination has showed you to think. You were told what to think. We were all told this model in school. All right, we were all told the heliocentric theory. We were all told that we landed people on the moon. We were all told that the sun is 93 million miles away. We're all told that gravity holds everything to the Earth, right? So gravity right now is pulling this down, allegedly pulling it down. You know, another thing about gravity, if gravity is holding this cement mixing truck right here, and we can imagine the weight of this truck, how heavy that truck is, and it's pulling this down to the center of the Earth and pulling everything down. Let's just imagine this cement mixing truck is a tank or a larger vehicle like a giant ship. Imagine a giant cargo ship full of load on the ocean. And imagine it being upside down under a ball, and there's a ship, let's pretend this is the Earth, and there's a massive cargo ship underneath the ball from my location up here in the north, and the gravity's pulling it inwards. If there's a force so powerful to pull this concrete mixing truck down, why is it that these guys next door, little birds flying around, little things, they don't feel a thing? They're not like sucked to the ground and crushed. Like a force powerful enough to hold things down so heavy, like heavy construction equipment, and nobody feels any kind of pressure like on their shoulders, like pushing them down or pulling them down. Like as I stand here right now, my arm is just flailing and my arm is just holding down like this. I don't feel something pulling my arm down, right? My arm has weight, but why don't I feel it getting pulled down? So on the whole gravity thing, they say it acts like a magnet. So it behaves like a magnet, except it doesn't just attract metal, it attracts everything, right? So another contradiction of heliocentrism on the gravity thing is the Earth's iron core is supposed to be made up of iron rock, right? So we get our gravity from the Earth's magnetic properties of iron. So the it is a proven fact, science, that iron loses its properties, its magnetic properties, when you heat it up over 1,000 degrees. Scientific fact, you can't argue that. So if the Earth's molten core and magma mantle is all molten hot iron over 3,000, 10,000 degrees, how the hell do we have any kind of magnetism from that? Make sense? Contradiction, multiple contradictions of heliocentrism. So back what I was saying about the gravity in the metallic suit. Imagine if I'm wearing a full armored suit of metal, right? To really test what a force would do to how you would feel it, right? I've got a technology in my ears, right? The technology in my ears is the way the equilibrium levels work on my ears. If I was in motion anyway, I would feel that motion. Anyway, if I'm spinning like this, I would feel that spinning motion, right? So there is a powerful technology, an advanced technology. By the way, the human body, the eyeballs, the ears, the respiratory system, the digestive system, this right here is the most advanced technology on the planet. So when people say, oh, science has the technology that proves this, that proves that, and that proves that, but you disregard the human body, which is the most advanced technology in the planet, on the planet. So you cannot disregard your actual feelings, your actual vision of you seeing things, right? Because I see something, that is fact, that is science. That is the difference between theoretical science, when they want to teach you theories that, oh, it's all these scientists have come together and they've concluded this theory is the most accurate, the best guess, because the theoretical science that they put together makes the most sense, right? That's a theory, right? A fact is different than that. A fact has more credibility than a theory, because it is a fact that this is a bush and that's a flower, and then I can smell the flower and this has pollen in it, and that bees come and take the pollen and make honey. That's a fact that I can look at and test and show you evidence of that. It is a fact that this grass is green, that it's growing in the ground, that it's got roots in the ground. It is a fact of the matter that the tree is growing the roots down into the ground, and I'm looking at the sky is cloudy and the weather and it's rainy and it's water is wet and moist. It's a fact that you can test all these things scientifically. So those that are arguing for theories, oh, because it's the most educated, best guess from scientists, that's still, whatever definition you want to give to theory, whatever you want to say, it's science. No, it's not science. Science is fact. I can touch this and look at that. That is wood. This pole right here is made of wood. It's not a theory that it's a best guess. It is wood. And it is just because I'm looking at it. All right? So the things that you look at with your eyes and the things that you feel with your equilibrium are also true. So if you're wearing a metal suit of armor, let's just say I'm standing on top of let's just say this sewer right here. This sewer lid, let's just pretend that is a magnet, like a high-powered magnet. And I'm wearing a suit of armor. If I got close to this magnet right here, my arm would get pulled down to it. If I'm wearing a suit and I stepped on the magnet, and I'm stepping on the magnet right now, my whole body would be feeling the pull down of the magnet. Correct or not? And yeah, this sounds funny, this looks ridiculous, right? But to a free thinker of critical analysis and the ability to think for himself, it's not ridiculous. All right? If I'm standing on this earth that's supposed to be pulling me down, I'm being pulled